How's it going, y'all? This is Drolet and welcome back to the channel. I've got a fun one for y'all today, so without delaying, let's go ahead and get started. Number 91. Recognizing whether or not a move is hard for you, or if you just need to warm up and recruit yourself more for it because of its uniqueness. Something really wonderful about climbing is that so many people get into it with incredibly varied backgrounds, whether they played sports and video games, did nothing, just lifted weights, whatever it is. Now, the terrible thing about this is a lot of people don't understand the value of warming up very well. And there's this odd belief that the earliest in the day you can try something hard, or the earliest in a session with the least amount of warming up and the least amount of moves ahead of time, the fresher you'll be, the more high quality. I will regularly see people do this where they will get on a 510 and then try a 513 plus project. They will tell you that, well, I don't want to waste any energy on more warm-ups, but they're not able to do any of the powerful moves. They're normally getting flash pumped. It's not working for them. Now, I know some of y'all are part of Team Anti-Warm-Up. You're going to say things like, well, have you ever seen a lion warm up before it chases down a gazelle? Have you ever seen a tiger stretch and get limber before it goes into a fight to the death with a crocodile? I don't know who needs to hear this, but you are not a 600-pound jungle cat. You need to warm up. General rules of thumb I like here. For sport climbing, warm up to within one number grade of what your project is. So if you're projecting 13D, your last warm up should be probably in the 12D range. For boulderers, I believe that one grade above your consistent flash level is normally a pretty good range. So let's say you are projecting V10 and you have flashed some V7s when they fit you, but you pretty consistently can flash V6 75% of the time or higher. Yeah, I would say if that's your flash level, consistently V6, let's end the warm-up with at least V7. Obviously, there's going to be some wiggle room here. Going stylistically is a little more important. If the V10 is ultra crimpy and there's a 2-move crimpy V6 and a 30-move power endurance V7, the V6 is probably going to be a better warm-up for that V10 that you're trying because they're so similar in styles. But if you use these rules of thumb of one number grade below your project for sport climbing, and for bouldering, one number grade above your consistent flash level, this at least gets you in the ballpark of warming up effectively, and you can kind of tailor it to your needs beyond that, and you should be pretty good to go. Now, if you're sitting here thinking, Nate, that's hard. Like, I want to project 14A, and you're telling me I have to climb 513 every day before I climb 514, I'm going to be too tired. I'm not going to be able to do the harder thing. And to that, let me say, I get it. I hear you. I've been there. If you feel like you don't have the work capacity to warm up thoroughly for your project, if doing a 511, 512, and 513 is going to blow you up for the day to where you can't even try your 14A project, I think work capacity is a more important thing for you at this point. And I would be okay with that. I would be okay with, maybe taking a little bit of a loss on the 514 because it's going to build up my capacity over time. And truly, if you are more fit, you're going to be able to give more burns on your hard project. And this is especially true for boulderers. I see this a lot with weekend warriors who are time crunched. They'll be hyper efficient with their weekday training and maybe they're doing 90-minute workouts. Well, then they go out to their project and they can only give it a handful of good red point efforts. Where if you built up your capacity, you can go out on the weekend and try that V10 20 times instead of 7 times. That's huge. I mean, that's so much more beta learning, refinement. That is so many more chances to send. I use this as a bit of a litmus test. If you don't have the capacity to warm up, we know what you should work on. You should get more fit. Those are some basic rules for warming up. Let's talk about specificity a bit. If I need to do a 1-move V8 on a route I'm trying, I need to warm up to where I can do 1-move V8. So if I only do a bunch of easy juggy moves, I'm not going to be prepared and I'll probably have to go up. I'm going to have to try that move like 10 times and then I'll finally maybe be warm enough for it and then I can give it a go. Instead, I should pick something that can warm me up in that way. When it comes to warming up for specific moves, my basic rule of thumb is the more strange and unique a move is, the more I likely need to warm up for that move. And the reason for this is a lot of times when we warm up, we're going through just, normal ranges of motion for our hips and shoulders. It's nice. It's fun. It's comfortable climbing. And then you get on your project and you have to do some crazy over the head, upside down Gaston, or maybe you're doing some weird undercling above your head that might feel a little aggressive on your wrist, or maybe you have to heel hook and put all of the weight of the world into this heel hook. And you have not stressed your hamstring nearly enough prior to this. So anytime I encounter something like this, my first go-to is, okay, let's just get a little more warm first and test that out. For a lot of people, I would argue that many moves that they try aren't nearly as tweaky and injury provoking as they might think. It's more likely they just haven't warmed up for this specific task yet. Rocks aren't made for us. They're really weird. They put us in odd positions. So if you haven't warmed up for a specific odd position yet, and you've just done some general warming up, warm up for that specific thing. Something I'll do all the time. If I have to do a move where I'm going to be doing a big like iron cross move on a boulder, I will just walk up to the wall. I'll walk up to a tree branch, whatever. I'm going to grab a hold, kind of set my shoulder in a good position, and I'm going to slowly put a bunch of force through that arm. I'll, kind of pulse it, slowly put more and more weight through it each go. So maybe it's like, okay, 10 pounds, rest a few seconds, 20 pounds, rest a few seconds, until I feel like I am, warm enough I can jump into this position on a boulder. Because if I haven't done anything in that position yet that day, this move's going to feel like it's going to rip my shoulder out of the socket. It's going to feel way too hard. I need to warm up for the specific thing. And most of you are advanced climbers now. Some of y'all are intermediates who are still watching this, and that's okay. I love that y'all are attending. But with harder moves, as an advanced climber, things get weird, things get funky. You're going to be asked to do so many aggressive things that your body may initially not like. We have to coax it into these positions gently. If you're trying a move and it does feel aggressive and you're trying it, and you're like, this is still like kind of tweaky, what you can also do is you can use this approach of gradual exposure. So maybe if I'm trying to grab a really heinous Gaston, instead of trying to do the move to it that's going to shock load, I might just try and pull on in isolation. I might even leave a foot on the ground so I can just pull in, try and, find what position feels good for my joints and muscles. It's like, okay, this is where I want to end up. Let's just leave the foot on the ground, but I'll kind of try and pull on. We're going to warm everything up there. Take a minute off, do it again, maybe try and lift that foot. Then I might try and do the move after it because that might be less aggressive than doing the move into the Gaston. I might then get a power spot from a friend into this move. I'm going to slowly work it up. And this might happen over multiple sessions. Sometimes a move might feel super aggressive your whole first session. So I'm going to try and get my joints and tissues feeling as good as they can for this session on this move. And I won't push it. Once I feel like I've got a sufficient amount of work done, I'll try other things. Take some rest, and I'm going to come back and see, does it feel stronger? Does it feel better? A lot of times it does. You'll come back and you'll be like, oh, okay, I can just lift my foot right off, and I feel like I can start to even do this move. And you can keep slowly progressing in this way. So whenever you encounter a really unique and strange move that you feel like, this feels really hard. Maybe it's just hard, or maybe I haven't warmed up for it. Try warming up for it specifically first, see how that goes, and then we can start using things like the 7-go rule to really assess the difficulty. But if you aren't warmed up for it specifically first, it's really hard knowing, is this move hard or am I just not prepared? Final note here, and I think this one is pretty important. Beyond unique and strange positions, another thing that warms up very slowly that a lot of people aren't aware of is your contact strength or rate of force development through your fingers. You can have your fingers be warmed up as they'll ever be for hard, slow crimp crawling, but they may not be warmed up for latching fast, that ability to recruit as much forearm musculature as you can all at once to grab a hold fast. And this will happen to people all the time. They will go through, they're like, okay, well, I want to try this kind of jumpy, crimpy thing. So they'll warm up on slower, crimpy crawling, climbing, and they think, okay, my fingers are warm, and they go over and they can't stick the jumps to save their life. And it's because they're not recruited yet and they're not warmed up yet for latching things quickly. You can warm this up a mix of ways. I like, you can just jump off the ground and try and latch a slightly bigger hold or that hold in general. You can even walk up to a hold on the wall and try and just pulse and grab as fast as you can a handful of times. But we have to warm up specifically for latching quickly. Number 92, being able to recognize how pumped or powered down you will be at the top of a boulder or spore climb. This one is so important because if you're bouldering and let's say you're trying something that's 10 moves, maybe doing all the moves in isolation doesn't feel that bad, but when you start linking them, some of these moves are not going to work out. You cannot even start to do them the way you had rehearsed them. And the reason for this might be that you're just a little too powered down. You're not feeling pumped, but you just can't pull with that 100% strength that you had when you're trying the moves by themselves. Maybe you're only at 80% when you're there from the ground. And so that move where you're like, oh, I can just lock off and force it into being isn't going to work here. With sport climbing, this is something you really want to learn soon, or you will spend so many days thinking, I need to get fitter, I need to get stronger, I can't do it, I need more fitness. Where more often than not, what ends up happening for people is they'll go up a route, new project, and they'll bolt to bolt it, and they're doing all the moves in isolation. They're like, yeah, this goes great. And then they go for a big link. Oh man, and they can't do the moves the way they were trying. They can't even come close. What we can often fall into the trap of is trying to do moves in a way that feel really secure rather than doing moves in the way that will feel easier. And especially just recognizing if the first half of a route is really powerful and a lot of underclings, a lot of compression, a lot of squeezing, then my arms and my back are probably going to be pretty tired, which means I'm not going to be able to get up to that last big red point crux and just shoulder this crimp and slowly reach out off of a high jug foot in a really bunched position the way I could if I was hanging off of the bolt. And in the same way, if the opening of a boulder or a route is really finger intensive, then maybe at the end, I might have to be doing some really big, committing, powerful moves off of better holds rather than being able to use all the tiny little crimp intermediates that make me feel like I can do it in better control. And I keep using this phrase control because a lot of times this is what this ends up being. Sometimes it's just not being able to see other beta, but typically when we are more fatigued, you're going to have to lean into, methods that might be a touch out of balance. They might feel like, oh no, I could slip. I'm having to trust this foot that is in the perfect position for where I want it, but oh man, there's this giant jug foot 2 feet higher, and I would rather step on that than this slippery little thing that could pop. So recognizing when you are first trying a climb, how's it going to power you down? How's it going to pump you out? What are the attributes that are required earlier on in this climb? If there are rests, what are you going to be able to get back? If it's that compression route I talked about and then it's an undercling rest, you're not getting those arms back. You're going to have to learn how to rely on your hands a little bit more at the top. And the better you get at the skill, the faster you will be able to dial in beta that you just know will work. You'll start getting on the upper third of a sport climb, knowing, okay, I'm not going to be locking off moves. I'm not going to be skipping all these intermediate holds most likely. I might end up needing them. I'm going to be using the best stances for my feet that I can. Even though you don't feel tired as you're bolt-to-bolting, you kind of create this simulation in your head of, okay, I'm probably going to feel this way, so let's plan for the absolute worst. And another thing to keep in mind here is that I talked about being pumped or powered down, but anxiousness is going to be something too. If we're talking about a red point crux high up on a route, you want to have a beta that you can feel confident in, that you're not going to second guess. Years ago, I was trying a route with a buddy. We both had different methods for the red point crux. I had this method where you set a heel hook and you paddle through some crimps. And yeah, it was, kind of challenging when tired, but it was consistent and I knew I would have the energy to be able to do it. His method was to do a giant, maybe V4 dyno. He would skip all of the crimps and slam dunk this jug. And he never missed a bolt-to-bolting, but this route was really powerful to get up to there, and it wasn't a super high percentage move. It was sort of a blocked hold, and the whole time I was like, man, maybe work out another sequence just in case something happens when you get up there. End of the season comes around, I climb the route, and then right after me, he goes up, he gets through the whole bottom crux, he gets to where he shouldn't be falling, and anxiety got to him. He got a little too nervous, and he ended up fumbling the dyno, and he wasn't able to get it done that season. Plan for multiple occasions. We've talked about having plan A, plan B beta. This can go hand in hand with that. Now, this is all fine and good, thinking about it as a conceptual mental practice of, okay, well, I'm going to think about this, think about being more pumped or think about being more powered down. But for a lot of people, that's not tangible enough. So what I want you to do is think about these things as you're doing big overlapping links, as you're doing low points. So if you're trying a boulder problem, it's 12 moves long, try and send it from move 3. If you're not sure of your red point crux beta, yeah, let's stress test it. Keep trying to send it from lower and lower. What's happening? Is it still just rock solid and working? Hell yeah, you don't need to worry about it. But if as you keep getting lower and lower, that red point beta still is starting to look shakier and shakier, maybe we need to think about that. Is it worth going back and, spending an hour just refining it and seeing, okay, I was able to do this method in a few tries and it works, but could I do it better? And with sport climbs, this is especially true. Go for big overlaps, go for big low points, try and send things from as low as you can, go up, try and do sequences kind of tired. I think there's value in trying to do your red point crux method. When I say red point crux, for anyone unsure of that, red point crux just means basically it's like the final hard section that ideally if you get through it, you should be sending. So there's like your proper crux, which is the absolute most difficult sequence, and then the red point crux. I'm a huge fan of trying to do your red point crux way more tired than you'll ever be on point. And you can achieve this by doing big overlaps. Maybe you climb up to the 8th bolt of a 12 bolt climb. You fall, let's lower back down to bolt 5, rest for a minute or two, and then pull on and go. We've done so much more climbing. Even with that little bit of rest, you're going to be carrying way more fatigue for that upper sequence. Yeah, now we really get to know, is this going to work? And the cool thing about this too is doing your red point crux that powered down is such a confidence boost when you actually get there on red point, because you'll get there and you'll be like, oh, I feel better than I have before. I can do this for sure. And honestly, belief goes so far. I know I've said that a bunch in this whole series, but belief cannot be understated in its power. The final tool you can use here to try and understand how powered down and pumped you're going to be on something is you can climb into a pretty deep hole of fatigue. So even after you start to get tired in a climbing day, keep trying the easier sequences on your project. And this is a bit of a double-edged sword. Like climbing that fatigued isn't always a great idea. Sometimes you can just dig yourself into a recovery hole to where you might not be climbing well again for 5+ days, but also injury risk can increase as you get more fatigued. So you're going to have to be really smart. But sometimes this is a really good way to take easier sequences on a climb and really understand, am I doing this well?